Hi and welcome to India's number one construction podcast, BuildMate Podcast.
Human behavior is different in our homes and outside our homes. ऐसे कई एरियाज हैं जहां हम बाहर जाते हैं अपने घर से and we spend those moments of escape or those moments within ourselves, or it is just a bare need that we are trying to fulfill. We go to public spaces, we go to parks, we go to offices, we go to shops, stores, malls, and an occasional visit here and there to other institutions which we would not like to go, like hospitals, schools, if that's your thing. But living spaces are much more than just a home. Today, we are trying to cover a living space, which is a public space, and it's a retail space for a big brand. It's a clothing store in the heart of South Delhi, in Chhatarpur. आज ये एपिसोड थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट हम बना रहे हैं और दिस इज़ अबाउट लिविंग स्पेसेस स्पेशली इन रिटेल सेक्टर where we are trying to cover a retail store which is a high-end fashion label in the heart of South Delhi. So we are back in conversation with Apeksha and Tanuj, the two brilliant architects from Studio Grey Matter. Hi Tanuj. Hi Apeksha.
Hi
Rishabh.
Good to see you guys and good to have you back on BuildMate podcast. कैसे हो? क्या खबर है? It's been a long time, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. I think
Yeah.
we've been talking about doing this for a while.
Yeah. So quickly, where are we?
welcome to the Malmal store at Chhatarpur in Delhi.
Yeah.
It's great to have you here. And it's a retail store, retail cum hospitality store designed by Studio Grey Matter. That's Tanuj and me.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are very excited to do this podcast with you today.
Retail store सुना था, retail और hospitality नहीं सुना था. ये क्या है?
So retail and hospitality. I think we'll take a step back and get into maybe the backstory.
Sure.
So Malmal, as you know, is a women's ethnic wear brand.
Yeah.
It's a homegrown entity, and I think their USP is their customer experience. And now, customer experience is a very intangible quality to translate into a space.
Yeah.
So we felt that hospitality is the layer that we need to build in to actually bring that aspect of customer experience to make visitors, customers connect to the brand. And that's how this layer of hospitality came in. And so as you see here, we are sitting in the middle of a retail store
Yeah.
where the density of garments is not very high.
The best part about the store is that it doesn't feel like a store.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like an environment where you're comfortable,
Yeah.
you're sitting. And while maybe, your spouse is browsing or you're here with the family, so there's space for everybody to do something.
Yeah.
Which I think is an element which is usually missing in a retail space.
That's true, right?
So yeah, and the aspect of hospitality, I think what's really important is this idea of familiarity, which is also something Malmal as a brand embodies. So we've made sure that we've taken inspiration from architectural elements that sort of define Delhi.
Yeah.
So for example, the arches that you see in the store, very, very inspired by the colonial heritage of our city.
Yeah.
At the same time, these are not standard colonial arches. We've tried to contemporize it by giving it a really minimal form, accentuate it with fluting,
Yeah.
so that we can situate it in today's time.
Right.
So these little ideas of familiarity that we've built around, which not only make the space lean more towards hospitality than retail,
Yeah.
but also give the customer a sense of comfort, a sense of being welcomed into a space of their own, in slightly different from the hustle and bustle of the 100 feet road that we are situated on. So it's almost like a little sanctuary or an oasis that you might encounter while shopping
Exactly.
through your day. Yeah.
But I'm just baffled by the fact, like if you do commercial spaces, right?
Yeah.
A client comes to you, says, "This is the brand identity. This is what my brand embodies, and this is my mission statement." How do you link that with design, right? You know what I mean? You spoke about what the brand stands for. There is an element of hospitality within, retail element of it, right? How do you basically take design from that problem statement, which it might not be a broad problem statement as well, right? Somebody likes to be vague as well, right? Some people themselves don't know, right?
Right.
So I don't know how you guys basically stumbled upon the idea of design here. So I want to talk about that philosophy a bit and how you actually as a team came around this.
So I think that is again a part of our process.
Yeah.
We start any design process by asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the key roles any good designer plays. Like, it helps different people who are associated with the brand come together. A brand is usually not one person.
Yes.
It's also an entity.
Exactly.
So there are different trains of thoughts. So, an amalgamation of all of that, then a synthesis of all of that, okay, these are the 4 or 5 cues that are very strong.
Yeah.
So there's an exhaustive conversation. There are actually many layers of those conversations. And it keeps filtering down to like, okay, let's get back to what is the core idea here. So hospitality, for example, for this brand was such a core idea. A retail space is such a premium space in terms of like the display that any brand wants to have, the density of garments. So having a hospitality gesture doesn't naturally come to any brand. But for this particular brand, it was such a key element of their, what they represent, that they were very okay with us building into this gesture.
Right.
So again, circling back to what you said, that there are so many thoughts and like how do you sort of extract the core
best out
sort
of
of,
it, right? Yeah.
So this is one sort of example of that extraction, because when the clients came to us, they did not know that, they want this here.
Yeah.
But that's a layering we built in. So we understand what they're saying, and then through our expertise, we help them articulate how that can be built into the space.
Okay. Did the product type, be it ethnic wear or be it modernistic sort of a styling of clothes, did that actually matter while designing the store? Or it actually does not matter what product is being sold, it's just the brand and what it represents and how the space should feel? Was that a question mark in your process where, okay, this is the kind of product they sell, maybe we should cater to it? Was that it?
So of course, yeah, I think the product matters immensely. What you're designing for, who your customer is. Basically, now, for example, this is an ethnic wear store.
Yeah.
If we are not cognizant of the colors of the fabric, the embroidery, the different techniques that have been used to make that particular garment that's on display, then we are not cognizant of the space we are designing around it. Because if you have to understand space, understand it as a receptacle in which this product is displayed in a way that it attracts consumers.
Yeah.
So if I were to talk about this space, it's been very consciously designed as a monochromatic space with only black and white, and the only color that you see is the color of the garment.
Yeah.
Because this brand does a lot of colorful garments. So it was imperative for us to make a space that just highlights the garment by virtue of its color, by virtue of the detailing that actually happens on it.
Yeah.
So the product absolutely plays a very, very important role.
And eventually that's what it's for, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It showcases the product.
The design is centered around the product.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in fact, to sort of like link the two, so there is the brand and then there is the product. Usually they are also on the same page.
Okay.
It's not like the brand will be talking about something else and the product will be something else.
Yes.
So automatically it ties together.
I mean, to look at it like a store is the physical manifestation of a brand's story.
Yeah.
And that's why it's very important for us to make sure that the cues that you see on the social media for a brand, in the branding guide, all that also has a physical manifestation in its retail outlets.
Right.
So that there's a continuation into the store in the story that the brand is trying to relay to its customers about who they are, what they do, how they do it.
Yeah.
And it also builds this idea of authenticity, which is what I think attracts consumers the most these days, because that's what makes it relevant to you, and that's what makes you, that it gives you the incentive to sort of buy from a particular brand.
Yes.
So a lot of it is how you understand behavior and psychology.
Before you walk into a store, the perception of that store is in your mind.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
That's the reason why you're actually taking out time and walking to that particular store. You spoke about something about retail spaces being, and retail spaces, especially in Delhi, being very, very upmarket, right? Because the costing is too high. The per square footage of it is extremely high. Now, when I'm looking at this floor, I don't see a lot of product, right? I don't see it flooded with a lot of different designs. Of course, there are designs here, but I don't see it like a regular retail space. You've basically designed it in a way which is quite walkable. It has that breathing space to actually look at the product in a very, very unique or a singular way. So each and every different product that's on display can actually be seen through those eyes, and you can actually take that time out to appreciate what it is like, right? Was that done deliberately, or that's how the business is run here, that they keep limited number of garments and then they work like that? I don't know if this was a part of the process as well.
So in any retail space, there are certain typologies that we follow. So you have the peripheral displays, you have the mid-floor displays, and here the displays have an inbuilt lighting that helps you look at all the detailing that Apeksha was talking about.
Yeah.
It was done very consciously, so that the browsing experience for the customer becomes like from good to amazing.
Yeah.
That was the idea. And then once we have catered to it, because that's what a retail space is, तो उतना तो करना ही होता है. Then we went ahead and thought कि what else? How else do we make it a memorable experience for the customer?
Yeah.
And that's where the hospitality bit and the gesture of this double height space, we had the volume, but what to do with the volume, how to create what we call a recall value. The customer remembers this store. So those were certain sort of thoughts that we had once we got the brief from the clients.
Yeah.
And that sort of helped us disseminate it and organize it and then convert it into the space.
Also, what happens is when you have the hospitality layer in your space, so for instance, in our space, it's an F&B partner, it gives the opportunity to a brand to partner with like-minded brands, which in turn make the story of the brand stronger and more authentic.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what's happened here. So we believe that it's a great opportunity for brands to sort of crossbreed and strengthen their individual stories.
And it's a smart idea. It's a very smart idea.
And of course, it obviously does help you build another revenue stream from the store.
Absolutely.
Which is just not your retail.
From that, providing you that extra element,
yeah,
it's practical also, right? So
yeah,
absolutely,
it makes sense.
So it's all about intersections these days, right? Nobody, we've all realized that ecosystems are important.
Yes.
So it's about building that ecosystem within the brands, within the customers, layering the space with different sort of functions.
Yeah. जब आप लोग बात करते हो ना डिजाइन के बारे में, it's completely different from my experience of the world that I come from. You know what I mean? You are talking about carefully thought of spaces within that space. I come from a school of thought where I've seen everything haphazard. Okay, store बनाना है, ठीक है, माल यहाँ रखेंगे, ऐसे यहाँ डिस्प्ले रखेंगे, विंडो बड़ी-बड़ी चाहिए, लाइट चाहिए, ये चाहिए, वो चाहिए, basics, right? Now this is coming from people who don't hire experts, right? This is my revenge against the world. Like this is something I keep shouting to the world that you don't want to hire professionals, right?
Right.
अब जब वो कॉर्नर बच जाएगा एक, उसके अंदर ये खाली लग रहा है, काउंटर लगा देते हैं, वो करना क्या है, रिसेप्शन छोड़ देंगे, देख लेंगे, मंदिर बना देंगे,
मैनेकिन खड़ा कर देंगे,
कुछ यार जगह है, काम आ जाएगी.
Right.
But when I speak to you guys, like each and every corner of that place, especially in your business places, especially in a brand space, it has to be very carefully planned, right? There has to be a rationale behind everything. There has to be a logic behind everything. And if not logic, it has to serve some sort of a purpose to enhance more beauty or that brand value right there.
Right.
It's not all haphazard. It's not everything which is haywire that falls into place, right? It's actually very well thought of, and maybe it takes like a few months, maybe it takes a complete year, maybe it takes a few years as well to build that, right?
Yeah.
कितना time लगा था ये store बनाने में?
It took us a good year. The design process and execution went on for a good 12 months. And, to what you're saying, I think, design is a creative endeavor. Also, it needs to feed into a commercial need.
Yes.
Right? We are sitting in a space which is really expensive. Like the per square foot cost of this space is tremendous.
Yeah.
So I think we feel like experts like us need to be hired so that we can make the most of what we have.
Yeah.
And not only in a creative or aesthetic way, but also functionally and also financially. And I think that's where our expertise lies, in bringing all these spheres together. So, which also ties back to the question, why hire a designer? Okay, like what you said, I know, okay, I want windows, I want natural light, I want a table, we'll figure out what we'll do with it. But वो figure out करने के लिए भी एक आपको पता होना चाहिए important क्या है उस space में.
Yes.
और फिर आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि जो points of importance हैं, वो क्या customer के लिए भी touch points हैं कि नहीं.
Exactly.
And that is where we come in.
Yeah.
because obviously experience helps, but I think एक intuitive understanding of human behavior, human psychology, what are triggers, what are positive triggers, what are negative triggers for people is very, very important.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you're designing an environment for them.
Yeah.
So one of the questions, it's been a year since the store has been up and about.
Yeah.
So one of the questions we ask the client is that, "Aapka revenue बढ़ा या नहीं?
Yeah.
Are you doing more sales now with this?" Because
Interesting.
that to us is where we have excelled as a retail store designer studio. Because ultimately it's about business, right?
Yes.
Ultimately it's not about creating pretty spaces. We are not artists. We are designers. So we are very logically optimizing different functions for a space.
Nice.
So yes, it has to look good because we are designers, but it has to function well and it has to be better for your business than your business was when you came to us.
Wow.
So that's definitely what guides our decisions.
Store दिखा दें लोगों को.
बिल्कुल.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
can't
Let's do
wait.
that, yeah?
Please, let's do
Let's do
that.
that. So we were talking about display areas, right? While we were sitting there, different ideologies, different spaces, different display areas. You want to talk about a little bit about how you've created these?
So as you can see, we're right now standing in a part of store which is very dense in display.
Yeah.
And which is very different in its feel from the front part of the store, which is very minimal, as you said, in display.
Yeah.
And this is one of the ways how we were able to achieve the density. So what we've tried to build in here is like a layer of discovery into the space. And that's what we've realized that, that's how customers really love a space when they get a hint of, okay, there's more. And then they walk and then they gently meander into like a denser display and they're like, okay, here are the products, and then they browse.
That subtle surprise or that subtle wow moment. They're like, okay.
And
this is about more.
Yeah. And we've situated this closer to the trial room so that you can browse, you can look, you can try, and then come back and do it again if need be.
And
so,
to add to what Tanuj is saying, the practical aspects, say all the garments that you see in the store are hung.
Yes.
And that is to, maximize the space that we have.
Yeah.
So, and to increase the number of clothing that we have in the space. So you'll not see anything folded or stacked.
Exactly.
And you'll also see the fixtures like these, where you can take out a garment and open it up and appreciate it in all its glory.
Yeah.
And then sort of put it back or buy it or whatever you want to do with it.
This is kind of like a serious buy zone as well, right?
This is
This is where you make decisions.
Yeah, as we jokingly call it, this is the women's zone.
Yeah, exactly.
While the men, like your fiance, your boyfriend, your husband, can go and sit there, relax with a cup of coffee. I mean, even your children for that matter.
Yeah.
And the women come in here and do what they have to do. Like, they mean serious business here.
That is one of my biggest problems with retail stores, right?
Yeah.
They're not hospitable to the family that's coming around with you, especially men. They're like, okay, we don't want you. The women are here to buy.
Yeah.
We don't need you. I don't know why you're here. हम आपके लिए बैठने की जगह नहीं बनाएंगे. आप बाहर जा सकते हैं.
Yeah.
Some stores have sort of started paying attention to that in a little bit now, and they've started creating those exclusive sit-down spaces. Even in some stores, they're like huge sit-down spaces now. But this is again the whole hospitality angle also blends into where a woman or like somebody or their family, mothers, sisters, friends, right? They can come around, take that patient decision about what they want to buy from you.
It's also how the brand sort of sees itself. So it's a difference between a slow buying experience versus like in a fast retail brand where you have a fast buying experience. Where you have like thak 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 dekho niklo, and then within 45 days you have a completely new collection. Here it's not like that. There's a lot of detail in these garments, and the way we have situated the lighting, the way we have situated the product density, the customer can take the pause, take the time out. You know what Apeksha was talking about, these retail sort of fixtures that help you open the garment and see all of that. Because it justifies the price of the garment. It justifies the expertise and the story that you're buying.
The craftsmanship, like there's a certain, like when you see the embroideries or the techniques that have been used on the garment, these are not like your fast buys. Like, it's always nice to take a product, look at it, appreciate it, and then own it.
Brands like to tell a story about their products, right?
Yes.
They like to basically make the customer realize that there is a story behind it. There's a lot more hard work that's gone into it. That comes when the customer actually pays attention, spends that time, values or gives that store or that brand that time and their patience, right?
Right.
So this kind of a design sort of allows that customer to do that. It's not noisy in here. It's very, very cozy. It's very comfortable. Sort of feels like, it's easier to stand here and take a decision and be on your way.
It's interesting that you point that out, because that was when we were given the brief from the clients. That's the first thing that came to our mind, that this store needs to be a sanctuary, almost like an oasis, in the hustle and bustle of Chhatarpur. And it's very strange because the noise gradient outside the store is loud.
Extremely
it's a cacophony. And then the moment you step in, you realize, it's so much quieter, so much more relaxing. It actually puts you in the mind space for shopping, right? So if you're out for a full shopping day, like going to Dhanmil or going to Mehrauli, this store actually serves as a pause point where you're like, I've seen too much. There's a sensory overload. So I'm here rukungi, I will enjoy a cup of coffee, I'll browse what they have. And then maybe proceed.
And usually you're dedicating your entire weekend to it, right? Or that Sunday. Like, chalo, aaj chalte hain, we've got to get this done, let's do it. And you're running around to Mehrauli and all those designer shops. Then you're going to Dhanmil, then you're coming around here, right? People are running around because there's no parking anywhere. Right? There's that whole challenge there. Then you fight those battles and you enter a place like this, which is quaint.
Right.
Which is very calm, peaceful, gives you that whole chill vibe, right?
I mean, at the end of the day, even brands are targeting like that customers buy the experience. They don't buy just the product and leave.
Yes.
And I think all this helps us, the way the store is situated, the kind of ambience it has, the way even the fitting rooms are designed, for that matter, which we'll get into.
I was just going to come to that actually. The way you guys are talking about design and the whole ideology about the retail spaces is something unique to me, because ghar, residence, homes, I understand. But I've never thought about it from this perspective, right? Because this is something unique. The way you are basically, it comes back to that whole careful planning, everything detailed into a very, very, minute levels, microscopic levels that you guys have gone into. And I think there should be like management books written about it, right? Because this is not just design. This really combines well with the whole monetary aspect of the business, right? This is where the economics of the business get helped, right?
Absolutely.
Because again, when you're patient, you have that time, you're buying the product. And it's a sure shot buy, right? Because what you're buying is a sure shot thing. This is not something that people come here and then they want to return it, right? The decisions that are taken in a space like this are final, right? So this really helps, This I have never thought about something like that, especially like coming from you guys, I realize it. But these kind of philosophies, usually you don't see them whenever you see such spaces as well.
Right.
Aap dekh rahe ho kuch, you're feeling something, but you don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
It's when you guys put it like that, you get it. One of the things that's unique here, standing here, is the fitting rooms right behind you, right? The trial rooms that you've created are different. It's unlike anything I've seen, because usually आप जो Zara's and Uniqlo's and wherever you're going, वो वाले fitting rooms एकदम different होते हैं. एक board लगा होता है fitting room and people just disappear behind them.
Right.
And sometimes it's a challenge to even spot them.
Right.
Talk about the design philosophy behind it and what was the ideology when you designed these fitting rooms.
Yeah, so the trial room, or the fitting area as we call it, is a layered experience. So we, after like studying quite a few retail stores that we have designed in the past, we realized that the fitting room is not an individual experience. Particularly when a bunch of women are shopping, it's a community experience, because मैं shopping जाऊंगी, I'll take my mother or my masi along, and then I would want कि whatever outfit I'm trying, I would like to show it to them. I would like to twirl it and get an opinion on it. So the beauty of this shopping, this fitting area is that somebody, while you're in the trial room, you step out, you twirl, you see yourself. There is a full-size large mirror. There is even lighting. We've used stretch ceiling lighting so that there's no shadow cast on anybody's face, whoever's trying out the garment. While your family or your masi or your mummy, they sit there and they also enjoy the show. They enjoy seeing you twirling. They enjoy seeing you, do your bit. So it's a very private, shared experience with your family.
In fact, when you say that, like, it happens with men as well. I experienced it at the time of my brother's wedding. We went to get a sherwani for him, right? And these kind of experiences are those experiences where you're buying something, usually for like the first time or that one time buy sort of a thing. जिस स्टोर में पेशेंस थी, जिस स्टोर में हम लोग आराम से, we were comfortable, that fitting room had that enough space for us to sort of think about the product and how all these things come together, because sherwani is not just sherwani, right? It's your safa also, it's your jutis also, it's the pajamas also, whatever.
Full ensemble.
There's a whole ensemble, right? There's a whole look to it, and everything is pieced together, and it should come together as one. Usually you buy all of that from one space. That decision was better taken in a space which was calm, right? Which was helpful to do that.
Yeah.
And I realize this now today, that why we took that decision back in 2019, right? Because of spaces designed by brilliant minds like you guys, right? So you guys have put that ideology into that design space, and it's very real. And now I understand what the ideology behind it is. Lighting, right? And like you mentioned, lighting. Right behind you is there's a rack full of clothes, right? Now they're hung from a whole system where you've got that strip lighting going on, which I think is probably daylight, the lesser that I know. Talk about the lighting in the store and how it enhances the whole thing. And what was your ideology when you placed those lights in the store, and how you make the product stand out?
For this particular space, we almost used lighting as an ornament. Like we imagine, like, if this space was a person, then lighting is what adorns that person, and then the garments are what the space is wearing. So that's the sort of symbolism in our head, and that's why you see, so behind those 22 feet high mirrors is actually like all of this lighting, which very subliminally emphasizes the rhythm of the arches. So there's a certain coherence in the space that, and it's all happening without you realizing it. It's alignment and, what we call about like giving the pause, this comfortable space. These are basic principles of design that we have used to sort of create those feelings.
Guys, we'll now jump into single elements, like different elements around the place. One of my favorite ones that I'm seeing here is the beautiful ceiling installation that you guys have done. Talk about it a little, please. Explain this to me. What is this? And this is amazing.
This ceiling installation has been designed by the amazing Ankan Mitra, who runs Apeksha, and that's basically origami-inspired architecture.
Wow.
The inspiration behind this element was that at the end of the day, we are talking about a textile brand.
Okay.
And they manufacture their own fabric. So we've taken their fabric and we've given it to Ankan, and he is derived this beautiful sculptural form that not only serves as an installation in the space, but it also diffuses the light that you see in the space. We actually have light fixtures which sort of get diffused with the folds and flow of the curves of this element.
Absolutely.
And it's a subliminal call to the brand itself again, but through a physical element like this.
So, what's very interesting is that initially when we had come to this volume of the space, so we got engaged in the project when this was a bare shell.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we kind of like then helped the clients align with where the walkway should be, where the offices should be, where the retail, yada, yada, yada. So with this double height space, the first natural instinct is कि हाँ पे बड़ा सा chandelier लगाएंगे.
Yes.
And that was that's what most stores do.
And that's the traditional way to
That's
go
a
about it.
traditional way to go about
Yeah.
it, right? So here, the intersectionality that I was talking about, the collaborative spirit of this space sort of came alive for us.
Yeah.
Where we again helped anchor the brand into what we thought would work well for them as a story. So it's not an in-your-face element, is what my favorite thing about this is.
Absolutely.
Right? It's just subtle. It's the same color as the ceiling. So we are not trying to differentiate it, but it anchors you to this like really large volumes. Large volumes also make people conscious.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here, this helps us bring that down to a more human scale.
Yeah.
I mean, some jargon that we use as designers. We've done this using the Malmal fabric itself. So that's a direct relationship to the brand.
Wow.
And for them to even imagine that their fabric could be used in this manner.
Yeah.
And that was a brilliant realization. Like, they were very happy.
Though it's subtle, it's like still the most talked about element in the store. Whoever visits the store, this is what they recollect. This is their primary recollection
This is
from
kind
the
of like
store.
the wow factor, or
Wow factor, yeah.
what we call it these days as the aha moment.
The aha
moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've gotten that. Yeah. That's exactly what.
Brilliant. This for me stood out when I walked into the store.
Yeah. So it's also flanked by these tall mirrors, which make this, when you're standing in the main browsing area, these 22 feet tall mirrors, they actually make the element seem infinite by the way they reflect the installation.
Exactly.
And at the same time, these mirrors were installed to accentuate the height of the space. To
Right.
when a consumer walks in, you want to make it look loftier, larger than life, and so the mirrors were employed as a tool to do that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they were lit so that they also accentuate the architecture, the existing architecture shell
Yes.
of the space. So yeah, and
नहीं तो ना पता है usually क्या होता है, we are fascinated by those double heights.
yeah.
So okay, this is going to be more airy. Probably that's the extent of it. We'll see more light.
Yeah.
But when you talk about how you guys have like thought about the space, it gives it a whole different vibe and feel to understanding the fundamental as well, right?
And it also ties back to where the brand is positioned.
Okay.
So if you look at the product cost of Malmal, so it stands somewhere between a designer garment and like a fast retail, as I said.
Yeah.
So the elements that we have chosen are done again very consciously in a way. So they serve two purposes. One is that they anchor the customer with these larger than life gestures. So you don't feel like you're in any other regular retail space. So it's an uplifted experience, but it's not as overbearing as a designer store usually is. You don't feel afraid to walk in. So it was this marriage of what is a large gesture, but comfortable.
Yeah.
You must have heard of this term quiet luxury.
Yes.
What does quiet luxury mean? And what does quiet luxury mean, particularly when you're talking about store design? So this is actually one of those elements. It has a presence, it's accentuating your space, but it's not in your face, just like the product. So it ties back into the story of the brand and into the story of the product.
And we were fortunate enough to do even the architectural shell for this space. So that's where, like, these sort of long, sort of mid volumes that you can see between the arches was also intentionally created so that we are able to position these mirrors here.
So the only motif that you see running in the space or pattern is lines. and the repetition of lines. So whether it's in the fluting that you see on the walls, whether it's the ceiling element where you read the folds in the form, you read the lines in the form of the folds, or whether it's screen elements for the mezzanine. Everything is just a line.
Or the glass for the railing.
Or the grass, the fluting of the railing.
Glass.
Everything is a line, but just the way the line has been played with creates so many different zones and different experiences in the whole store.
Another element that we have taken the line typology forward with is the flooring design. So the overall floor of the space is a black palette.
Yes.
But within that, we've used actually tiles to create like this black and white insert. And it's done in 3 parts.
Mm-hmm.
So the first insert becomes the water body and the hospitality space where you have a seating. The second one helps anchor the VM. And the third becomes your hardcore retail where we were standing retail. And like talking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the first things that you notice while you walk into the store is the beautiful water body that you guys have created here. When you look at a water element, it's usually fountains or something else, right? You want to talk about the water body a little bit and how you designed it?
Right. So water body ties directly to the idea of oasis for us.
Okay.
To the idea of pause. The sound of falling water is very soothing,
yes.
And that sort of helps cut off the noise that's coming from outside. So it serves these multiple tiers. We were very cognizant of Vastu implications for this particular store.
Okay.
So that was one of the primary reasons why it's a recessed water body. And because we are aware that a recessed water body has a danger of people falling into it, so we've created like a seating pocket around it so that that's averted. So again, we didn't want to create like a physical barrier. So it's a notional barrier and it does its job. And it also kind of helps people who want to sit next to the water body to have like you have the coffee next, which is right next to it. So you pick up a coffee, you can sit next to the water body. And it's an amazing experience. Delhi mein kahan milta hai?
Yeah, there's subtle music playing.
There's
the sound of water stream running right next to you and you're having that coffee. Yeah,
it's designing for all the 5 senses.
Yeah.
Sensory design, as we like to call it.
Right.
Definitely. I think this would appeal to all the husbands who stand in different stores, which I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, this makes a lot of sense. That's amazing. I want to talk about the counter first at the reception itself.
Okay.
So you guys want to tell us about it? How did you?
So the counter that you see downstairs, it's a 33 feet long bespoke counter, which is made in metal, like MS, curved glass, and metal mesh, brass metal mesh, and it's completely inlit, and that's why it glows the way it glows.
Okay.
And it was a task to build that because a single long entity that's 33 feet long was very hard to build. Weight, joints, like even like the top of it is say timber. So getting timber in certain sizes. So yeah, it was quite a mammoth task, but we are happy at the way it has turned out. And that forms the backdrop. So it serves both as the cafe counter, where all the coffee and food preparation takes place. At the same time, a part of it serves as the cash counter. So it's one long surface that integrates 2 functions.
Yeah. Was it built here within the space? Or did you have to like get it made somewhere and then it was transported
to workshop, transported
here.
And then again, we're looking at something very heavy, right? Because it's
very
MS
heavy,
and everything.
right?
Yeah.
Huge challenge there.
So that was a huge logistic challenge unto itself.
And now I want to talk about challenges only. there is a reason I use that word because we have to walk into the challenges you guys faced, right? Because everything seems pitch perfect here. Everything seems frame perfect here, right? But it's not easy to build something like that, right? So क्या challenges आए थे? शुरुआत से शुरू करते हैं. 2-4-5 main challenges पकड़ते हैं. So what you faced, maybe something that you guys remember, you can share with us.
Oh, I remember the funniest challenge for us.
Let's do that.
Right, because as I said, we had gotten involved in the project when the columns and all of that was being cast. So ये raw shell था हमारे लिए. And we were given a drawing by the contractor कि ये बना रहे हैं हम. And we started designing on it. As I said, it's a Vastu compliant store, so each and every entry, nook, corner, everything was planned for. हमारे प्रोसेस में सबसे पहली चीज होती है हम मार्किंग करवाते हैं साइट पे before we start the design. We got the marking done. It's a site kick-off meeting जिसमें पूरी chalk marking हुई हुई है. All the stakeholders are there. And we realized that the site is 4.5 feet shorter than the plan.
Okay.
So everything's aligned, everyone's aligned to start construction, and this comes up. And
This was at a stage when technical drawings are made, layout
we've
is
done
made.
the BOQ, done the
This is
drawings.
the AutoCAD drawing, yeah.
So that was a bit of a freaky moment for us, and we sort of immediately realigned ourselves, and we were like, okay, now we need to get into action mode. And within a week, we almost redid the layout. We chopped it, whatever was unnecessary that we
Because
felt.
a 4 feet difference is not only shifting your elements, the vastu of the place changed.
Yeah, the
Which
grid
is
changed.
Yeah, the grid
uncompromisable,
changed.
right?
It's
Yeah.
uncompromisable, and
Client is very vastu specific, and they're like very
Yeah.
much behind the whole ideology of it. But yeah,
So that was for me now a very funny challenge in that moment. A very like unheard of challenge कि नई building है plan से 4 feet छोटी कैसे बन गई.
that happens.
That happens a lot in our
construction
country, huh?
It does.
We should.
ड्राइंग तो देखी नहीं है ना?
Yeah.
ड्राइंग देखी हुई है तो पढ़ी नहीं है ना?
And you
बनाना
know
तो शुरू किया था फटाफट.
the implication of it, Rishabh, is that the lift that's here was supposed to be located piche
Oh.
because
Yeah.
that was the appropriate corner. The lift had to come in the front, like 40 feet in the middle
So
of
you
the
have to
store.
create a separate.
And it had to
Pit.
be pitless.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
pitless.
couldn't create a pit there, so it's now a pitless lift.
Oh wow.
So it impacts a lot, and as designers, you have to constantly problem solve for whatever site life throws at you,
Yeah.
and it has to be done within a certain time frame because unlike residences, retail, in
The
fact,
fit out
any
period
commercial
is time bound, yeah.
it's very time bound. It's a commercial space. The client is paying rent,
Yeah.
and they want to start making money off the space as soon as possible. Makes
Exactly.
sense.
The
Business
more
point of
delay
view.
is there, the more money is bleeding, right?
And
Yeah.
it just so turns out that commercial spaces have the funniest of challenges. I remember another challenge where when we were given the site, like he said, it was a bare shell and even the mezzanine was being cast. The slab was being cast at that point in time. Like we had a very unusual request from the client when we were given this site. Like Tanuj mentioned, it was a raw shell.
Yeah.
The mezzanine slab was being cast at that point in time. And the clients called us and they asked us, they said, we've signed you on and we are raring to start on this project, but we have a request. Can you do the interior of the project before you touch the exterior,
Oh.
the architecture or the facade design?
Okay.
And I don't think we've ever had this request in the past, ever. But that was a genuine request. The idea was that you scaffold the entire structure and then do the interior work and then touch the facade, because of the challenges that we usually face building on a main road in an area like Chhatarpur.
Yeah.
And so that's another funny challenge of sorts.
The act is to constantly anchor the clients and make them understand कि it's not like अगर बाहर का facade बनेगा तो अंदर सामान या मलबा नहीं गिरेगा.
Yeah.
They were like कि तो हम एक बार plywood से cover कर देंगे उसको और फिर बाद में बना लेंगे. So there's a constant sort of conversation because the clients are also as much a part of the building process.
Yeah.
And the inside is not disconnected from the outside.
Exactly.
A space inside and outside, it's all related.
Yeah.
So वो समझाना हमारे लिए काफी बड़ा challenge हो गया था.
Yeah.
But luckily it was communicated, and at the end of the day, I think the result
जैसे
speaks
बोलते
for
हैं कि there is
itself.
a way to do things.
Yeah.
Like there is a process to it.
Yeah.
Now, if you tweak around that process, something is bound to go wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Or some sort of a nook or corner would not be perfect, or some sort of a edge would not be perfect. Doesn't seem like the case here. But I don't know. Hats off to you guys and the entire team and how you guys pulled it off. You said challenges, especially when you are given a raw shell of a building, right? Any other changes that you guys had to like design
The
because of
water body.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like so the plinth had been cast,
Okay.
and there was a requirement for a water body. And it was something very close to the client's heart. They really wanted a water body, which you usually don't see in a retail space, right? Because everybody's trying to optimize the area that you have.
I think we pitched it really well to them.
Or so we would like to believe.
Okay.
And we also felt that the story of the this oasis is incomplete without a water body.
Yes.
And but the plinth had been cast. and the water body had to be recessed. We couldn't bring it on top because of vastu reasons.
Okay.
So, it's like you have a design wish list, but you also have real world challenges around it. And then because the client was so invested in it and we were so invested in it, then we actually decided to cut the platform.
Okay.
Yeah, like a part of it, like a little,
Sure.
the desired depth was less than what we had envisaged because we did not want to disturb the structure of the building, the existing foundation. So yeah, that was another challenge, but I think that was one of the nicer challenges because everybody just sort of came together to make that wish happen. Yeah.
I think that's what's beautiful about challenges is, and at least that's been our experience. So the clients has two way of reacting to a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Either they will blame you or they will come together and be like, okay, what can we do to now, get past this?
देखो अब करना है.
करना है, कैसे करें?
कैसे
Let's do
करना
it.
है?
And I think we've been very lucky that we have found work, we managed to find work with clients who always gear towards the latter.
Okay.
And that's what helps us, design, which is something different. Because whenever you're trying to do something different or innovative, so to say, you will face challenges.
Right.
Getting a buy-in from the client to do that, everybody wants their space to look different. But do you have the wherewithal to invest in it and make it different?
Right.
Then
And
investment is financial, it's emotional because you don't know whether what you're trying will work or not.
And temporal, like time.
Time.
Because of commercial
I
deadlines.
always say this, that one of the biggest challenges to a project is the client. I always say this.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's a universal law in many cases. So good on you guys that you found that to be less of a challenge, and you had people who were compliant and who were actually working with you in that common goal.
I think if they see the value in what we are doing,
Yeah.
as you said, now when you come into the space,
Exactly.
you think everything's curated, everything's been done to perfection.
It does feel like that.
And of course, we know the behind the scene action that happened, and the clients know. And what helps is for us to let them understand that, we're going to design and move out. You're going to be here with this for 10 years. So it's worth spending that extra month or two to get a product that you will be happy with for 10 years. So when you put that kind of perspective, the client also realizes कि हाँ यार सही बोल रहे हैं मतलब, and sometimes they will be like कि नहीं, we are okay to live without it, and then we work around it.
Yeah.
So it's a push and pull. And it's a process which unfolds. Another challenge that we sort of faced with this particular site was the idea of, so we've created the whole facade here, right? Now, because of the change of the dimension, the facade had to be revisited. While the facade was being revisited, they got approval to add another floor.
Oh, awesome.
So the building size increased.
Brilliant.
And
Just to add to the challenges.
And and it worked out for us because one of the intentions behind designing the facade was to have like an iconic building on Sofata Road.
Yeah.
You have a lot of construction on Chhatarpur Road, but we wanted to create a building that you can identify with.
A landmark.
And landmark, like you
Exactly.
guide people through.
It does stand out.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yes.
So just by the addition of that one more floor, we were able to get more visibility. The signage placements became better.
Yeah.
Of course, the land use for the clients became more enriched. So, now galleries coming up onto the upper floor. There's a co-working space. There is the Malmal office here.
Yeah.
And there's the director's office. There's the store. So it's a very multi-layered building that's been programmed by us and the clients together.
Yeah.
And then these different spaces built in. Some spaces we were not involved in the detailing of, but like the broad sort of zoning happened with us.
Nice. With great power comes great responsibility. Right?
Right.
With a beautiful project does come a behemoth task, and taking those challenges head on and everything.
And these are just like the larger ones.
Yeah.
Now, every design element also comes with its own challenges.
I'm sure.
So, whether it's the railing of the main staircase, which is like this curved wood with metal inserts, that took us a long time to prototype and get right because it had to almost like just sneak into the stairwell.
Okay.
That was the idea behind it. It should flow in. And the same for, there is a long railing that's wrapping around the building, which is also, which helps you spot the building from right when the 100 feet road starts.
Okay. Yes.
and just the weight of that railing and attaching it to the facade.
Yes.
That was a
Seen
mammoth
those,
challenge.
yes.
Yeah.
Finding the right section,
Yeah.
because earlier
Yeah.
we wanted to do it with plate, and we realized plate is becoming so heavy. Then we tried doing
Box
it with
sections.
box sections. Then we moved to aluminum sections.
Ooh.
Finding the right proportion of the section that could be powder coated so that it can withstand outside conditions.
Yeah.
I think prototyping works really well
Yeah.
for us
And
because
then finding the right method to actually install it.
yeah,
Because that needs to be strong enough to hold it
yeah.
for years.
And getting the buy-in from the client to do all this in this limited time period that we have.
By the way, it's not just the railing, right?
Yeah.
You've got a window system there as well,
Yeah.
which needs to fix in
So-
properly. That railing system should not interfere with the
Yeah.
window as
Yeah.
well. Heights,
And
levels.
also like the curved UPVC system,
Yeah.
right? UPVC usually does not support like arches.
Arches, yeah.
So that was a big learning for us that, how do you create systems that perhaps are some part of it is closed, some part of it is open. We wanted like full height arches without any beams or columns.
Oh.
There was a beam cutting through it. So
Right.
how do you reproportion the arch so that becomes interesting, and add an element of fluting so that it looks
Right.
like it's intention.
Exactly. Any compromises? Like something you guys really wanted, and then you're like, okay, nahi ho pa raha hai. Let's try. Nahi ho pa raha hai. Let's try. Nahi ho pa raha hai. Okay, then leave.
I think no,
That's great.
because
that's a
as a practice,
Wow.
it's definitely a version of what we wanted. It's not always how we envisioned it in the first sort of like first visualization of the space. So the ceiling element is one of those spaces, one of those elements. So we wanted to do like this whole spiral, almost like a concentric spiral kind of a form. And then when we got into it with Ankon, and then he comes with his own expertise and he advised us as to what sort of form will work.
Right.
And then we had the fabric that was again a certain kind of fabric which
Yeah.
came with its own challenges, how to pleat it, how to keep the pleats from not losing their form.
Yeah.
So it's a version of what we had started with. And I think it's a richer version of what we had envisaged. So I think that's what usually happens for us.
Yeah.
So one of the great things that has happened with this project is, in our presentation to the clients, we showed them a visual of like a 1-point render where you could of the entire
the
space.
first briefings, initial briefings?
No, this was like after
Design
a couple of like
presentation.
presentations.
Yeah.
So what we call as like the detailed design where everything sort of comes together.
Okay.
So we also want to show the client what that space would look like.
Okay.
So we generated a 3D visual with the water body, flooring, ceiling element, walkway, counter, everything.
Yeah.
And when the space opened and we were taking a walk with the clients and we were standing in that spot from where we had taken that visual from, and the client was like, you know what? This looks exactly like the render you guys showed us.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Mission accomplished, huh?
exactly.
Wow, brilliant. Awesome.
I wanted to say, as a young practice, our endeavor is to make what we really visualize and together with the client and other stakeholders, and we really push hard to achieve it. Compromises happen, but usually compromises are our last resort.
Okay.
So, and we really try and push through to get the vision to come alive.
So this was Tanuj and Apeksha from Studio Grey Matter, and we were at the prestigious Malmal store in Chhatarpur in South Delhi. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you have any questions, write to me at buildmatepodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at buildmatepodcast. एक छोटा सा YouTube channel है हमारा by the name of BuildMate Podcast. If you watch the entire video there, subscribe to us. We have a lot more content coming up for you in the future as well. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.